All right, if we're going to factor some polynomials, in part A, we just have a regular old quadratic, so we can factor it like we factored the quadratics before. Factoring x squared by breaking it into x and x, and then looking at the factors of 40, and that will be 1 and 40, or 2 and 20, 4 and 10, we got 5 and 8, and then 10 and 4. So these are all of the pairs that we could have, and we want to find that pair that's going to make a negative 6. So that means the next parts will be 4 and 10. And we check to see how we're going to make the negative 6 in the middle. If we add negative 10 plus 4, so negative 10 plus 4, that makes the negative 6 that we want. So x plus 4, x minus 10 are the two factors. In the next one, in part B, we don't have a quadratic. We only have two terms, and the biggest power is 3. So we look at each of the individual terms and we realize that both terms have x's in them, and in fact, the biggest power of x that we can factor out is going to be x squared. And if I take x squared out of x to the third, I'm left with x. And if I take x squared out of 6x squared, I'm left with just the plus 6. Nothing else I can do can factor this, so x squared times x plus 6 is the factored form. In part C, we have the difference of two cubes, x cubed minus 125. And this follows a special pattern where one factor is going to be short and the other one's going to be a bit longer. The first factor is just the cubed root of each term, so the cubed root of x cubed is x. And the cubed root of negative 125 is negative 5. Now, when it comes to making that longer factor, I always think of just as saying square together square. There's going to be 3 terms in there, square together square. The first term is where I take this x and square it. So x squared. The second term is when I put these two together, the x and the negative 5. Doing that will give me negative 5x. And the last term is squaring again. Square together square, I square this negative 5. So negative 5 squared is plus 25. We're almost finished. The last thing to do is go back and check the signs in the middle. The two signs in the middle have to be opposites. Since my first sign is negative, the second sign has to be positive. So I change that to a plus 5x, and now x cubed minus 125 is factored. The last one, when we have x cubed plus 5x squared minus 4x minus 20, we want to factor this by factoring by grouping. So what I'm going to do is take these 4 terms and just cut them in half, and only look at this first half first. In those first 2 terms, they share a common factor of x squared, so I'll factor out the x squared. Doing so leaves me with an x plus 5. Then, in the second half, negative 4x minus 20, I can factor out a negative 4. And I'll be left with x plus 5. So we just went from a polynomial that had 4 terms now to a polynomial with 2 terms, this term and this one. Each of these 2 terms contain a common factor, that being x plus 5. When I factor out an x plus 5 out of the first term, I'm left with x squared. When I factor it out of the second term, I'm left with minus 4. So we can go back and factor that quadratic, the x squared minus 4, into x plus 2 and x minus 2.